to be very clear and to end this, that statement was very carefully worded. Why wouldn't the Prime Minister say, I didn't contact Alan Joyce or any other senior executive at Qantas personally for flight upgrades? Why did he use the word call when he could have just nipped this in the bud and put an end to this for good?
Well, he said what he said. He's gone further, and I understand others have been out on the same issue. Like it ends up getting ridiculous. This pursuit by Mr. Dutton of the Prime Minister, he would be far better spending his time working out how it is that he justifies imposing nuclear reactors on communities that don't want them without Geosciences Australia doing the work to check whether it's safe. He would be far better having a way of explaining the $315 billion worth of cuts to services for Australians that he plans. He'd be far better explaining a plan for the future of manufacturing in Australia and how his cuts and his approach to government aren't going to be just the same as the old Morrison show. I mean that's what Australians
Tim, just
have got
again,
here,
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you, but why didn't the Prime Minister just come out on day one and answer it straight away? If there was nothing to hide, he did nothing wrong. Do you concede and agree that the delay is causing a bit of doubt here around the Prime Minister's integrity?
No, the delay is a press gallery obsession, really. Those journalists who've chosen to be utterly focused on these questions. The Prime Minister, I think, I listened to what Olivia said earlier. I think that sounds about right, doesn't it? That people want to ensure that everything's, like to go through the process. He's in no hurry. Like he's focused on the things that matter. Like the cost of living questions for Australians now, where which is what we should be talking about. Significant progress, still some way to go, but significant progress because of the government's policies. Future made in Australia, defence and national security questions. That's what the Prime Minister's focused on. If Peter Dutton wants to be focused on flight upgrades, well, it's glass houses territory there. I mean, this bloke flies backwards and forwards across the country on Gina Rinehart's private jet and wants to criticise others for accepting and declaring the occasional upgrade. The person he sent out to do the dirty work, directed and authorised by him, Senator McKenzie, has now got egg all over her face. If he applied the same standards to Bridget McKenzie that he applied to Anthony Albanese, she'd be having a very difficult day indeed. But she's still, trying to get to the bottom of the smear bucket. Like, this is not a serious proposition that has been advanced here.
It definitely is a serious question of integrity, because if a Prime Minister or then Transport Minister solicited flights personally, it does matter, and it does matter to the public.
But he said that he didn't,
for private upgrades then, but can I ask you a question? If he was the then Transport Minister and he did ask for private upgrades, would that be a breach of the ministerial codes of conduct?
He's declared everything. Like, the only reason that you are able to ask questions about this is that the bloke scrupulously, carefully declared everything at every occasion and done the right thing over 22 years. 22 years. That's not the case for Bridget McKenzie, who hasn't been able to manage it over 22 weeks. There's no question. If you want to put Anthony Albanese's integrity up against the team that supported Scott Morrison all through the last miserable 3 or 4 years of the Morrison government, be our guest. I mean, if it's an integrity competition, we are absolutely up for that. The question here is, has everything been done within the rules? Answer's yes. The question has then gone on to be, well, did the Prime Minister ask for any of these? The answer's no. Then it turns out that the Questioner-in-Chief, sent out by Peter Dutton, the angriest man in Australian politics, always looking for a fight, sends someone out to ask the questions, and she's got egg all over her face. Like, this is where it was always going to finish, and it's finished. And it's finished in record time.
We understand. It's no surprise politicians get freebies. The question is whether the PM, the then Transport Minister, solicited these. He's come out and released a statement late yesterday afternoon saying that he didn't personally call Alan Joyce. It's very carefully worded. It doesn't say that he never contacted. There's other forms of communication, text message, in-person conversation, email, or other senior executives. He didn't wipe that clear either. He said that he didn't personally call Alan Joyce. It's the second day that the Prime Minister hasn't fronted the media. Why is that? Do we need to see him stand up and clear the air now, put an end to this? We're all sick of talking about it, but Anthony Albanese hasn't really put a full stop to this.
Well, he certainly has. He's answered those questions. I mean, the next round of questions will be, did he communicate in Morse code, in semaphore, through the medium of sign language? Did he see someone in the street and wave at them? Like, honestly, it becomes more and more ridiculous. But in contradistinction to that, you've got the people who are running the smear job with egg all over their face already. It's only Thursday. And you've got a Prime Minister who's focused on the issues that matter for Australians. Like what the approach on the cost of living, tax cuts for every single Australian wage earner, relief that has actually been part of making sure inflation is falling. A discipline in distinction to the last crowd who talked about budget surpluses but never delivered one. 2 back-to-back budget surpluses that have put downward pressure on inflation and through that downward pressure on interest rates. Like, actually the serious issues, national security, like all of these questions, that's what the Prime Minister is focused on. And Peter Dutton, who should be assembling a plan that could convince the Australians that he's not a risk for future investment, which he is, that he doesn't have a dodgy plan for nuclear reactors that isn't well thought through. That's his job. He should be focused on it, but he's back to the old politics of anger and rancour and hyper-partisanship, just like Scott Morrison.
Okay, Tim, I won't keep going on about Qantas, even though I feel we have many questions still to be answered there. But I must talk to you about this because this is your realm, and we'll finish off on a lighter note. In other news, let's talk about this, a future made in Australia. There's now a plan to use Australian steel for investments into new energy infrastructure with a focus on regional communities. You're very much involved in this, of course. How much steel will be needed for the transition to net zero?
There's many hundreds of thousands of tonnes of Australian steel required, for example, in the wind sector. And this is an enormous opportunity for Australian business and Australian workers, particularly in regional Australia. Now, we've got the biggest industry policy pro-manufacturing package in Australian history, the Future Made in Australia package, together with the work that Ed Husick is leading with the National Reconstruction Fund and our industry policies more broadly. My job is to work with local communities and work with the engineering sector and the steel industry, together with the developers and business in the renewable area, and make sure that we're matching up those opportunities and we're building opportunities for Australian steel. It's the approach that the Albanese government took, for example, in rail manufacturing, working carefully with the states and the engineering companies in rail manufacturing to deliver a result now, or where we're continuing to work closely with the states, all of the states and territories that build railway, that build trains and carriages, are building them here in Australia. I want to see the same approach, generating good jobs, more good jobs in Australia's regions, because that's what Future Made in Australia is all about.
Okay, we do have to wrap things up. We've had a decent conversation there. Assistant Trade Minister Tim Ayres, thanks for your time today.
See you later.